If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock. This is Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers.
And JR.
And we are going to be covering a topic I have long wanted to cover. It's very, very interesting. And I think it's time to really bring it to the mainstream in an intelligent and logical way. So the topic is Breatharianism.
How is that?
Breatharians are people who survive only on oxygen, no food, no water. It's a permanent dry fast.
I like that. I wish I was that.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, like,
Or
wait, let me ask you,
are we and we're just distracted by food?
If you like the podcast, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell notification to get updates on podcasts when they're released. And you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. And check us out on social media, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, Patreon. Just check the description. So, in the Breatharian philosophy or way of life, I mean, this goes back thousands of years. Indian yogis have long practiced Breatharianism. The mainstream has covered it only in a couple of cases on the news. I mean, people have died doing this, obviously. People have died on a normal fast. People have died doing anything. People have died going for a jog, had a heart attack, and dropped dead. That doesn't mean you don't go on jogs. But part of the reason for this podcast is to kind of expose the mainstream agenda in kind of denouncing any kind of natural healing practices. I mean, obviously everybody knows now, or at least a lot of people, that fasting has tremendous health benefits.
well, I mean, I don't want to, cut off Maxwell, but can I ask a quick question, Bruce, before we move any further with
Sure.
this particular, yeah, okay. Are these people interdimensional, shadow-based, within the spectrum of dimensions that are not the 2D or the 3D? Are they a spherical form? Are they, people that are the ghosts of people that lived in Atlantis? Or are they human beings that are born without stomachs? Are they any of those things, or are they just regular humanoid people that live like me and you, and they just practice this, kind of like those monks that can fly?
Both and neither. So some of the people we're going to be discussing are everyday, average people who have decided to live this lifestyle in some capacity. And also we will be discussing certain monks in India who have actually been monitored 24/7 to prove their claims. We will be going over those who have been debunked. We will be going over those who were mysterious and are still unproven one way or the other in tackling this issue, this concept of breatharianism. So,
Can I ask one more question?
sure.
Do these people consume anything, or is this just not food but water, or is this they only live on oxygen?
So my response to that will be in addressing common misconceptions about breatharianism. So, first, let's look at the mainstream version of what it is, and then we'll get into what it really is.
The fact that this even has a mainstream version is pretty...
Well, the mainstream version pretty much denounces it as silly nonsense, which is kind of funny because fasting is actually scientifically proven as a very efficient detox method and it gets rid of a lot of ailments. But this is from Science on howstuffworks.com. Can humans survive on air alone? Written by Mrs. Katie Lambert. If you had the perfect cure for world hunger, wouldn't you want to share it? A group called the Breatharians claim to have the answer to this worldwide dilemma and to other food-related diseases. Stop eating. Or rather, live off PRANA, which is a Sanskrit word that translates to life air or life force. The concept of prana appears in many other traditions. China, Japan, and Polynesia all have their own words for this sustaining life force. Breatharians believe that a person can give up food and water altogether and live purely off prana, which they also call living on light or living on air. Foremost Breatharian Jasmuheen, formerly Ellen Grieve, is credited with starting today's Breatharian movement. Her PRANA program advises followers to convert to Breatharianism gradually, become a vegetarian, become a vegan, move to raw foods, then fruits, then liquids, and finally prana. If you replace physical food with air and light, as well as metaphysical nourishment. Fasting is a spiritually important aspect of most major religions, including Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Mahatma Gandhi, the famed spiritual and political leader and humanitarian, referred to a complete fast as the truest prayer. He conducted fasts throughout his life for religious and political reasons. The main difference between fasting and the Breatharian approach to food is that fasting has an endpoint. Breatharianism is a total fast for life. That is, however long you live. Jasmuheen claims she's lived for years without nourishment, although she admits to having mouthfuls of food for taste every once in a while. But Breatharianism has taken the lives of some of its followers. Verity Lynn, a 49-year-old woman, was found dead in a remote part of Scotland after attempting the Breatharian conversion. Timo Dejan, a kindergarten teacher, tried the Breatharian plan and slipped into a coma. Dejan recovered after 4 weeks of IV drips, only to die a short while later. Lanny Morris kept a diary throughout her time as a Breatharian. Morris, a mother of 9, died with symptoms of pneumonia, severe dehydration, kidney failure, and the effects of a severe stroke. She was in the care of 2 Breatharians, Jim and Eugenia Pesnak. Morris was isolated and had the understanding that she would be given orange juice after 1 week and nothing at all for 2 weeks after that. She indicated in her diary that she dreamed of food. She lost the use of her legs, became incontinent, and began coughing up a black sticky fluid. The Pesnaks claimed they did not know Morris was seriously ill until it was too late. Next, we'll examine what happens to a person who stops eating completely and why the Breatharian plan can be a dangerous path to enlightenment.
Well, again, I don't want to be the only one asking questions here, Bruce. But a breatharianism, that's what it's called.
Yes. Breatharianism.
These people, did they die from not strictly adhering to breatharianism, or did they die of starvation? And second of all, I have a question. What are the benefits of the breatharianism movement? I don't know about you. I don't know about Maxwell. I don't know, but I'm not just a steak and potatoes kind of guy. I'm a fucking surf and turf kind of guy. And I like the steak with clarified butter, if you don't mind. So this is kind of a little out of the realm of, I guess I'm just kind of.
You've made your position on gluttony pretty clear in our Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't.
I'll address.
Is there a benefit?
I will address all that in certain order. So, What happens to your body as a breatharian? What happens to the human body without food and water? Without food, the body must find another way to maintain glucose levels. At first, it breaks down glycogen. Then it turns to proteins and fats. The liver turns fatty acids into byproducts called ketone bodies until there are too many of them to process. Then the body goes into a life-threatening chemical imbalance called ketosis. This is a pretty funny article because it's been ketosis. Depending on who you are, your genetic makeup, your specific biological conditions, ketosis is the ketogenic diet is actually very, very suitable for many people. And after an adjustment period, even people who have serious diseases actually become asymptomatic of those diseases. Now, certain other people, the ketogenic diet can actually be detrimental. So it's kind of bizarre. And also I will add my 2 cents here before I even finish the article. How many people die from taking Tylenol? So they're going on and on about these 3 people that died through breatharianism.
Before the recall, Bruce, or after the recall?
Well, we could even go to the trials. How many people, before it was even released, there were quite a few people died during the Tylenol trials. And yet, I'm fairly certain that most of the authors of articles like these don't give a second thought to popping some Tylenol or drinking some soda or eating a nice GMO burger from McDonald's, which now the cancer rates are skyrocketing. and they're kind of making it look like the people that are trying natural healing methods are the idiots. I mean, yes, anything done. I mean, it's kind of like the people that die from heart attacks that on jogs. You know, it doesn't mean you shouldn't go jogging. That means you should know what you're getting into and pace yourself accordingly. But once again, I am not promoting the breatharian lifestyle. This is just a podcast to clarify exactly what it is and how it works and to dispel some of these myths associated with it, like this propaganda article is peddling on howstuffworks.com. All right,
So let me ask you, let me just throw out another question, Bruce, because I mean I'm not going to go on my tangents. I know that I'm famous for doing this. So let me just ask you a couple questions. First of all, how come this doesn't work for like people say in like Haiti, where like they starve from day one and end up eating less?
Okay.
Yeah, and like, you know, we're gonna have to, like, you know, because like I have to go to Wawa to get like my famous like 6 foot, you know, or 6 inch sub. But that's it.
6 foot
Yeah, like,
sub.
yeah, all right. Yeah, like I have a question, Bruce. Like, how come the kids that are born in Haiti, like, how come? I mean, you know, if the body can live by starving effectively and finding another needs and nutrients, how come children that are born into poverty don't automatically? I mean, even though like they may not like, you know, follow the certain steps. I mean, obviously there were people that experimented with this before there was a how-to guide on how to, you know, how to do
Well,
it.
JR, if you let me finish my introduction, I will address all these points.
I'm just throwing out there for people.
Yeah, and that's a very good point that I will obviously address in the before I finish the introduction.
Oh man.
I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that. I just wanted to go through the propaganda version of Breatharianism before we got to the real stuff. So, to finish this article, it's actually it's talking about ketosis. It's actually dehydration, though, that has a more immediate fatal effect. A person can only survive without water for a matter of days, perhaps 2 weeks at most. The exact amount of time depends on the outside temperature and a person's characteristics. First, the body loses water through urine and sweat. A person then develops ketosis and uremia, a buildup of toxins in the blood. Eventually, the organ systems begin to fail. The body develops kidney failure, and an electrolyte imbalance causes cardiac arrhythmia. Dehydration leads to seizures, permanent brain damage, or even death. Jasmine has said, if a person is unprepared and not listening to their inner voice, there can be many problems with the 21-day process, from extreme weight loss to even loss of their life. Science says that the human body cannot survive without food and water for that amount of time, regardless of what the inner voice says. So the other weird thing is science is not a person. Science is a tool. Science doesn't say anything. But anyway, Jasmine volunteered to appear on Australia's 60 Minutes to prove her claims of living on light. After 48 hours, her blood pressure increased and she exhibited signs of dehydration. She attributed these symptoms to polluted air. The program moved her to a location further from the city, but as her speech slowed, pupils dilated, and weight loss continued, the doctor supervising the observation advised the program to quit the experiment before she lost more kidney function, and they did so. Jasmine maintains that 60 Minutes stopped the test because, quote, they feared she would be successful, end quote. In spite of scientific evidence to the contrary, some breatharians allege that they live healthy lives without food or water. Wiley Brooks founded the Breatharian Institute of America and claims to have been a breatharian for about 30 years. He appeared on the TV show That's Incredible in 1981 and appeared to lift 1,100 pounds. On his website, he claims to lift 600 to 900 pounds without exercising and to sleep 1 to 7 hours a week. Somewhat oddly, for a breatharian, he recommends Diet Coke in the 20-ounce and 1 liter sizes in plastic bottles only, along with a double quarter pounder with cheese meal at McDonald's.
But wait a minute, then is he real true breatharian?
For a mere $10 million, Wiley Brooks will initiate you into the Breatharian Institute of America. It's kind of cheap. Wiley Brooks sounds kind of wily. What do you think?
So wait. Let me just get this straight. a millionaire, I mean, not even a millionaire, but like a multi-millionaire, would have to give this cat $10 million. And he recommends, you live on air supposedly, except McDonald's Corporation products and PepsiCo products.
Yeah,
I mean,
in the EPA bottles, not in the glass.
Maxwell, please, like, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I'm completely fucking confused right now. By the way, after this podcast, I'm going out, and getting fucking surf and turf. Like, yeah, I mean, like, this is hurting my brain here. Like,
Maxwell?
What I think about the person charging money to become a Breatharian.
Yeah.
I think it's a good business model. I don't know.
Maxwell approved.
I'd say so.
Maxwell
Well, I mean, $10 million. I mean, like, if he doesn't buy food, then what's he gonna spend the money on? Like, what? I mean, like, I don't understand.
Maybe he's one of those. Maybe he's one of those Rolls Royce type people.
I think his pricing is a little off, but
just a touch, just a tad. All right, moving on.
I mean, I think $1,000 he would have more people signing up, and then he can.
Well, you could do this. You could do this for free at home. I don't know why anybody would sign up, but anyway, Hira Ratan Manek, another noted breatharian, claims to have lived on sun energy and water since June 18th, 1995.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're earthing, right? I mean, like, what does he do? I mean, let me ask you a question, Bruce. They might not eat anything, but do they rub any kind of topical products or, like, dirt that has particular minerals into their skin as well? Like, I mean, the skin can absorb, obviously digestion is the most direct route of nutrition. But just because that's the case, I mean, look at the chinchilla. It rolls itself in volcanic ash in order to live. So, I mean, like, is there any kind of other external mineral input to the body, or are you talking about these people literally live on no food, no water, and just direct UV rays from the sun?
Once again, let me finish the introduction to get through the different...
I wasn't aware we were still on the introduction.
Yeah, this is still the introduction. So his website lists multiple scientific study, but the bias of the scientists seems to be in question. This is a very interesting writer for howstuffworks.com. The bias of the scientists seem to be in question. Does she mean like in every single study ever? Since it's funded by certain institute, I mean, whatever. Okay. Can a person survive without eating food? For a while, yes. People on hunger strikes have been known to survive for months. It's the lack of water that will get you. Okay. So, anyway, that's the general introduction of the mainstream version. Now, there's a certain differentiation between inedia and breatharianism. So inedia means Latin for fasting. So where there's certain confusion is between permanent fasting or the lifestyle of not being addicted to food. So let me read directly from breatharian.info, the official Breatharianism website. So an idiot, a not eater, is a breatharian. This is a state of man characterized by the absence of eating resulting from, or rather being a stage on the way to, expanding of the consciousness sphere in which man lives. In general, an ideal, fully realized, immediate, breatharian, or not eater has no need to eat or drink to keep the body working perfectly. A breatharian consumes no food and no drink. They need only air to nourish the body. Many not eaters, even if they call themselves a breatharian, drink water, tea, coffee, or other beverages from time to time. Some of them, in order to satisfy the sense of taste, eat a piece of chocolate, a cookie, some cheese, horseradish, or something else once in a while. So some very unique picks for food there. The not eating state of an idiot, breatharian.
Don't mess with horseradish, Bruce. That's on my list of faves. Don't go there.
Oh, I like horseradish.
Okay. All right.
I'm just saying, out of all the foods in existence, for them to pick those select few. This not eating state of an idiot, breatharian, not eater doesn't require any ascetic practices of the body. This is more about the freedom of choice and a lot of benefits. A person who regularly drinks liquid food, like fruit juices, can't be called an immediate breatharian or not eater. This is a diet called liquidarianism. Does that need a dedicated podcast? Also, we don't call a person an immediate or breatharian when he or she is fasting or on a starvation diet. So these are very important distinctions here. Also, in these cases, food is not or almost not consumed during some time, but such situation lasts only temporary, and then food consumption is resumed or the person dies. An immediate or breatharian never starves or dies for lack of food because his or her body needs not matter called food. Permanent not eating, inedia, or breatharianism are states which usually appear as a side effect of expanding one's sphere of the consciousness. However, there are also many cases that the state happened unexpectedly and lasted for months or years. A person who by force tries to refrain from eating can't be called an inedia or breatharian. Such action, if prolonged, is harmful to the body and can lead to death. Fasting and starvation diet are different subjects than inedia, breatharianism, and not eating. Becoming an inedia or breatharian results, often as a side effect, on a way of expanding the sphere of consciousness which the person lives in. Inedia, breatharianism, is more like a characteristic feature of a lifestyle and is not limited to just stopping all food intake. Because an inedia or breatharian sets him or herself free from the need to feed the body, he or she has the choice to eat or not eat. But one thing is for sure, a real inedia or breatharian does not need to eat to keep the body working normally. All right. Are the definitions set now, JR and Maxwell?
Yes.
Maxwell?
I think I understand. I think I understand this a lot more ever since you said that. Yeah.
Maxwell?
I think I don't know. I think I got it.
Okay, so the website then goes on to explain how is it possible. They have 4 distinct explanations here. Explanations for the open-minded. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. No matter what, whether we believe in something or not, the phenomenon takes place irrespective of our knowledge or belief. Besides, no matter how we try to explain it, the explanation arrived at is really so important, question mark? The most important thing is that from the beginning of our civilization, there always were people who never ate. Such people existed, exist, and will exist, which means that we too have this capability. We only need to find a way to adapt the body to a different kind of energy processing. Explanation for an esoteric person. I guess we would qualify, right? Ubiquitous energy, whether called prana, chi, ki, organ, liquid light, or by other names, maintains the organism of someone who doesn't eat. A human body can be powered by prana if the subconscious, which manages the body's metabolism and shapes the physical body, acquires the skill of automatic transformation of ubiquitous prana to satisfy the needs of a human body. Explanation for those scientifically minded. Of all the other organisms, the human body is the most complicated, integrated, and self-regulated energetic system. It is complicated and in many aspects unexplored computer mechanic chemical formation controlled by the brain with the whole layout of magnetic, electric, and gravity radiation. This complicated machine can be adapted to all possible living conditions on Earth if given enough time and developed in the right way. We haven't fully explored the human organism energy system. One of the ways of powering the human body is energy, and substance is created by the chemical and physical factory of the body, the excretory and respiratory system. Apart from this powering system, there is another, a reserve one, or maybe a major one but moved away to the reserve role, which is able to transform the available energy directly. This powering system transforms the energy directly into matter. So in this way, all that the organism needs. The pineal gland is claimed to have a crucial role in this process. This hypothesis is confirmed by research undergone on some people where CAT scanning shows a significant enlargement of this gland. The pineal gland manages, like a central processing unit, the mechanism of direct energy exchange between the organism cell and the surroundings. It actually occurs at a subatom level. One explanation, purely scientific, which comes from a nuclear physicist, says as follows. The organism consists of tissues, which are built of chemical molecules. And these molecules are built of atoms. Atoms consist of electrons and protons, which are built of smaller elements. As the result of this way of looking for an origin element, we reach the point where the matter does not exist. There, we have only something which we can call vibrational whirls of energy. As long as history exists, it has been known under different definitions. For example, prana, organ, light. Hence, such definitions originated, such as living on light, or prana nourishment. All the matter which exists in the universe, including the human body, is comprised of whirls of vibrational energy. The human body is the best, well-known, sophisticated, programmable, and simultaneously self-controlled electronic, physical, chemical machine with a central management system called the brain. There are centers in the brain which manage body energy and chemistry, mainly the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. In this way, the organism lives and builds itself using these whirls of energy. And also an explanation for a deeply religious person. God is everything. There is nothing which exists without God. There is nothing which has not been created by God. The inconceivable and almighty God is the one and the highest perfection. Since the almighty God has created everything, and he, she, it is the highest inconceivable perfection. He, she, it can bestow the ability to live without eating on people of his, her, its choice. Since God is inconceivable and almighty, it is no use asking how God is able to do this. Important is the fact that God can and does select people to receive this grace. We can ask God for the grace of not eating because God listens to sincere requests of the devoted children. It's kind of interesting. I mean, how many websites promoting something give all these different explanations? It's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean it's out there, but I mean it's interesting. I think I have a better understanding of this particular I guess lifestyle, or not necessarily lifestyle, but choice.
Philosophy we could use.
Philosophy, yeah, okay. I mean, like to cover the religious aspect, I have to say, I mean, when you look at the Bible, I mean, Adam and Eve, they shared one apple from the fruit of the forbidden tree of fruit. I mean, they don't describe what they ate before or after that.
That's an interesting point, isn't it?
It is. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, like that's kind of in alignment with what you're talking about. I will say that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask Maxwell on his thoughts for the different explanations.
Well, on the Adam and Eve, I don't think they should have painted in the what do you call that on your belly? The belly button. Yeah, the belly button. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Because in the paintings they have that, and they shouldn't, because
they have a belly button.
Yeah, which.
Why would
he's actually right in a lot of well, they're buck naked, like in a lot of especially even in medieval paintings, they actually do have a belly button.
Wait, why wouldn't they have a belly button?
Because supposedly they were not born of. I mean, at least from what I understand, they're not born from a human, right?
Well, if there were,
that should be its own podcast. That's a really fucking good point. Like, I mean, like,
but if hold on a second. If they were genetically engineered by an intelligent designer in some kind of a tube, how did they receive nutrients while in the tube? Wouldn't it be via umbilical cord?
Well, I think what Maxwell's trying to say, Bruce, is that they were created by God directly. They weren't fucking born of anybody.
Well, I was saying that. I was just sort of, but I was just saying that. I mean, if that's their theory, they shouldn't portray a painting with a. Well,
you're not following my point.
And according to the Bible, God created Eve.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Exactly. Maxwell, look.
I know exactly what you mean by your intelligence creator thing. I'm just saying, for those who believe that they were created by God.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
It's the same thing. God is an intelligence.
Okay, got it. We're created by intelligence. That's great.
It's not. I don't think. For example, if you clone a human right now, you take genetic material, you take DNA, and you clone them and you put them in a tube. they're gonna need some kind of umbilical cord or something for nourishment. That doesn't mean it's coming from their.
Wait, that's interesting. Like if you clone, like, oh, they would have a. Huh, that's interesting. I never thought
But
of
the
that.
Bible, but Bruce,
They
the
do-
Bible
they do need
explicitly
something.
states that Eve was created from a rib of Adam.
Yes, so how do we know that that rib wasn't just taken for its genetic makeup to genetically engineer Eve?
But where'd the belly button come from?
Well, if the belly button is simply a way to get nourishment, I'm not saying it happened that way. I'm saying since we don't know how it happened, how can you say there shouldn't be a belly button? That's
Well,
my
let me
only
just
point.
a question on side.
Well, according to the theory, I mean, outside of the intelligence theory,
But
if God,
Maxwell, if God created man in his own image and God has a belly button, wouldn't he create even if Adam was never a baby that grew in a womb, even if he was just magically created as an adult, wouldn't he already have a belly button if that's the image of the human?
Yeah, but I mean, Bruce, I mean, if that's the
I
case,
guess
then
it
it's
just
got
it just
it's got an innie or an outie.
wait, what's that?
And does that make a difference?
Wait, say it again. Say it again. What? I missed
No,
it.
I'm just asking. Like, you know, Bruce is heavily questioning you here, Maxwell. If God had a belly button, wouldn't He create Adam in His likeness? But I'm asking Bruce, if that's the case, does God have an innie or an outie? Is he, you know, is it?
No, but Maxwell, you see the point though. Even if it wasn't
I
a
get it.
baby
I
in the
get
womb,
it. Yeah, I get. Well, I get your point. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, whatever.
I'm saying there's no.
I don't care. I don't
There's,
care. Go ahead.
I'm missing your point of conflict because if the human is made in the image of God, even if Adam was just created as an adult, he would still have a belly button because that's the design that God chose, right? So
Yeah, I
why
guess. I
would
guess you thought. I guess you thought about like, well, offspring would look like a belly button, so it would look weird if they didn't have a belly button. So I'm gonna make this two
or
people
if
with
it's
belly
just
buttons
if
to
the
make it
DNA if God
consistent throughout the.
yeah, the DNA is the DNA, number one. Number two, again, taking all of this information completely literally, I'm not sure if that should be done because of all the mistranslations in the Bible. You're really going to look at the English translation or even whoever drew
I don't
Adam
even
and
know the English translation. I don't know jack shit. I
hold
just
on.
know about the
I
painting.
know. I know. I was just getting to that point before you interrupted me. The people who made those paintings of Adam and Eve, how would they know how Adam and Eve even really looked like? So you're going to
Yeah,
say
true.
that those paintings are
That's true.
100.
Well, I don't. Okay,
So anyway, the point is, why would you take paintings as irrefutable fact of the Bible anyway? That's just, and even
well,
if
I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying, like, I thought the painters kind of like messed up. I mean, I don't know, but I guess you made your point, like intelligence or the God created
if
in His image.
if
I get it.
Adam
I
and
get it. I get your point. You win it. I get it.
hold
Can we
on,
move on?
why you no we
And
can't
you opened
because
up a new door, you
we
know, because I
can't
mean, like, I'm
Maxwell
curious. If God had a belly button and he was
Maxwell
an innie or an outie with it, you know, like,
we can't
the Bible has
move on
proven that, you know,
Max
like the
Maxwell.
left-handed are damned and the right-handed are chosen. Are innies chosen and outies, like, you know, are they damned to hell? Like, I mean, is it?
Can I finish my point or not? Let's say Adam and Eve did not have a belly button. Let's say they were whatever, created genetically engineered, created by God, whatever the situation was. Let's say they didn't have belly buttons. How would the painters know that? So they would just depict them with belly buttons. I'm not sure what the paint,
Exactly. You made your point. I agree with you.
but I didn't really claim they did or they didn't. Because I don't know. I'm saying they probably would have if there's a certain genetic makeup that has to be a certain way. But whatever. Okay, now that I've addressed the point that I'm not saying that they did have belly buttons because I wanted to get that out of the way because we don't know.
I just.
Because maybe they didn't. And maybe
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
only going to continue. I'm only going to continue with this.
Well,
Bruce.
first
It's
off,
like, you know,
I don't even know if they existed or not.
that was my next thing I was going to say. If they were real, they may or may not have had belly buttons.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the one other point on this website is following the herd. At the beginning of 2001, I noticed kind of fad developing in Poland, which was about prana nourishment or transition to living on light. Similar social phenomena, as I see it, is happening in other places. Everything would be fine if not for the following the herd mentality, which led some people to cause more harm than benefit to themselves and to the whole matter in general. As I see it in general, all these problems are due to lack of sufficient knowledge about the subject. Contrary to claims and information spread by the mass media and some people, inedia breatharianism, life without eating, is only a step on the way of expanding the consciousness sphere that one lives in. If the only goal is resignation from food, one may suffer problems caused by struggling to adapt the body for inedia breatharianism, not eating. The purpose of this website is to give more of practical information for people interested in inedia, breatharianism, living on light, fasting, self-healing, dieting, etc. Please be prudent and rather don't jump into the unknown, which may cause harm to your body. And one other warning they listed here, please do not understand information including herein as a guidebook on how to adapt the human body to living without food. Do not just blindly believe this. Consider this information more in a theoretical way. Adaptation of the body for lifestyle without eating is a much more comprehensive process which requires either the consciousness sphere to be expanded and or consultation, even direct guidance with the person experienced in this matter. The process of becoming of an immediate breatharian, not eater, is different for every person, and it is impossible to give a method proper for every person. Every and each person requires a method tailored to his or her individual needs. There are as many ways as there are people who have experienced this process. And that's a very good point there. And I want to draw the parallel again to even exercising. If you're an obese person who's used to sitting on the couch 24/7 eating McDonald's, don't be offended, JR, and all of a sudden you see someone on TV,
Hey,
all of a sudden
I'm a little higher end than McDonald's. I mean, like I like French cooking, but like I'm a little bit higher end than that.
Anyway, so again, my point is an obese person who hasn't exercised a day in their life, and all of a sudden they see someone advocating you got to be healthy and exercise, and they're running marathons. If that obese person tries to run a marathon, they will drop dead if they push themselves hard enough to do so. So does that mean exercise is bad? So like all of this mainstream propaganda attacks on natural healing and all of these things by pretending that they're unscientific just because science hasn't caught up with them, which by the way, science is actually catching up pretty quick now. I mean, the whole juicing, fasting, all these things were kind of made fun of several decades ago when they were introduced into the Western world more on a wider scale. So that's the point I want to make. If an obese person is going to die by running a marathon, does that mean no one should train to run marathons? Does that mean running and exercising is unhealthy? That was not a rhetorical question, JR and Matt.
Well, I mean, I'm not disputing it. The first and foremost, I mean, I would just like to say this, Bruce. I mean, and don't take this the wrong way, but my confidential secretary, who's very underpaid, but is very loyal, will be reaching out to you because based on our current schedule of podcast, I demand, and I'm making it clear to you and your viewers, that we have a podcast dedicated to God and whether or not he had a belly button and whether or not he was an innie or an outie. And like that has to be done. So my secretary will be reaching out to your people. That said, to put this into perspective, when I was in the military, and I have a very unique career in that when I was stationed in the Middle East, there was an individual that I knew, and I'm going to keep his identity secret, for his own, personal. I'm not at liberty to discuss people's names or anything, but he could eat hot peppers, like ghost peppers. He used to tell me that they had a very, very vinegary taste, and he loved them. Now, to the average person, if you eat a ghost pepper, it's going to blow your mouth away. You're going to feel like you're on fire. This guy could eat them like no tomorrow. My point is, Bruce, and how this relates to your podcast, is that there are individuals, and I mean this just is based on mathematics and so on and so forth, that there are probably individuals out there where there is no eating barometer. They don't necessarily need to eat because they don't feel the need to be hungry. So I would feel personally, and I'm talking about it in a scientific-esque way. I'm not a super researcher into that. I mean, this is a pretty far-out topic he threw us. And, Maxwell can chime in at any time. But that said, I think that people that don't have that barometer where, gee, I need to eat breakfast, I need to eat lunch, I need to eat dinner, I would feel that those people genetically are more predisposed to be able to live this lifestyle that you're speaking of, where there is no continual need to eat. It's just basic nourishment when they feel like it. And like, for example, you expressed horseradish, you expressed chocolate. These are very deep flavor points, and they linger in your mouth. Horseradish lingers in your mouth. Chocolate lingers in your mouth. So the nourishment is almost secondary to just the idea of needing to taste a flavor. So I could understand how these people would be able to adopt this lifestyle where eating was not part of their canon. It's simply just a part of the general aspect of being. They might need to drink water here and there to keep their body, but they're able to continue to function regardless because they don't necessarily have the receptors in their brain saying water, water, water every 5 seconds.
Yeah, they specifically trained for it. So does that answer your question on why starving children in third world countries can't simply breed breatharians and survive perfectly fine? It's just like they can't just immediately become world-class athletes of a specific sport without extensive training.
Maybe and maybe not. I mean, because, third world, children that are starving countries have never had the dinner I'm going to have after this podcast. So I can't really say for certain that.
Let me round that out with my last point of the introduction before we get into actual documented cases and debunkings. We approach both sides of everything on Mindshock, maintaining an objective viewpoint and trying not to fall for any fallacies. But it seems like breathing techniques are linked to immortality. The flying monks you mentioned, we're going to do a dedicated episode on them. And the yoga masters of India, everything seems to go back to breathing techniques. It's not just simply breathing in and out. It's an actual technique and a skill that takes many years to develop. There's a lot of stories of Shaolin monks, and what they say about breathing is it takes like at least 60 to 80 years to learn how to breathe properly. And if you had breathed properly from the beginning, your lifespan could be several hundred years. So if you got enough tinfoil there, guys, I'm going to unleash this upon you for postulation. What if humanity in our previous age, the age of Atlantis, the golden age of man, Tartaria, whatever you want to call it, the old world order, the previous age humans, what if humans are not designed to actually eat food and drink water? What if a fully actualized spiritual human can live without this type of physical nourishment and is more of an energy-based being? And maybe the fall of man, it described in the Garden of Eden in the Bible, from the fall of man from the Garden of Eden in the Bible, and eating the apple. Maybe that's more literal than it appears. Maybe they did, in fact, start to eat things, and that made a huge shift and caused the fall of man into materialism, and that includes eating matter as food.
That's an interesting point, Bruce. I will say that your heart has a natural rhythm. I know every night I have to get up to pee a certain amount of times. So, I mean, that has a rhythm. Breathing in a certain manner would, align your brain within a certain rhythm. I can't necessarily argue with that.
The other thing that's interesting is a lot of these ancient civilizations, from the Native Americans to the Celts to the Taoists to the Hindu, they placed a lot of emphasis on breathing. And breathing is linked to immortality, and we will do a separate podcast on immortality, of which I have several decades worth of research on as well, and documented cases as well as they can be documented. But breathing, what if guys like Methuselah, who are living to near 1,000 years old, and some of these monks with unspecified lifespans, what if they simply mastered certain breathing techniques that made reliance on physical sustenance unnecessary?
If that's true, though, Bruce, then, human evolution is very slow. Biological evolution beyond the scope of human beings is very slow. if that's the case, then how come human beings have a much more advanced taste receptor than other creatures on the planet?
Well, you're opening up a pretty big can of worms now, JR. Some people dispute evolution outright. Darwinian evolution in particular has not been proven. I'm a believer in adaptation, but I can't quite say evolution has convinced me as of yet, since we have not observed one species changing into another species. I can't get on the evolution bandwagon because of that. Because once again, the Socratic method, the scientific method, means observation and measurement are required, not saying, oh, over millions of years this happens. It has to be observed. So this theory of evolution of species converting into other species, I don't know about that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. However, adaptation has been observed, and that could be observed in just several generations if if the majority of humans, even from the get-go, once again, we have today, there are uncontacted tribes living in very primitive conditions. Meanwhile, we got cell phones and helicopters and all these advanced weapons and computers and internet existing at the same time. So we don't know what happened in the distant past or the previous incarnation of mankind if there were breatharians living alongside humans that chose to eat. I mean, is it a case of like, look at the pineal gland? Most people's pineal gland is calcified and unactivated. I mean, we look in the scope of one lifetime. Someone can become obese. Somebody else is an Olympic athlete. I'm not sure what you're getting at. Obviously, I think humans have been eating food for quite some time.
It's just curious to me because, I mean, this is in a situation where we can, add ageism, sexism, racism to this particular equation. Every race has taste buds, whether you're right-handed or left-handed.
Well, I'm gonna have to stop you right there too, because the notion of races is also disputed. Some geneticists maintain that there's not enough genetic diversity to make any kind of distinguishments between the human race.
Well, I would actually have to agree with that personally. I mean, and I take that from my own bouts with particular scientists. But that said, every human being on Earth, whether you suffer from psychological illness or, you're mentally retarded or you're a genius, there's not really a scientific dispute that you don't have taste buds. So where did they come from?
Well, once again,
evolution has taught us anything. I mean, and again, like, we're not talking about Darwinism here. We're just talking about the basic evolution. I mean, it could be, said that prehistoric creatures such as alligators, which have a very restricted diet, they might still have taste buds. I mean, I'm not a scientist in that particular field, and if there are, please chime in. But that said,
well, once again, I think you're conflating two different issues here. Because if humans have taste buds for the purpose of taste and not nourishment, I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Because, I mean, the taste buds, I mean, when you take a bite of something, I mean, and you're not a breatharianism advocate, right? I mean, like, you eat food, correct? I mean,
well, it depends on how you define breatharianism. I actually agree.
Let's look at a simple example here. You open up a bag of potato chips. You eat one potato chip, okay? So something in your brain, whether it's your taste buds or the receptors or whatnot, tell you it's acceptable to eat a second one. Now, the same can be said about people that eat poison mushrooms in the forest. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just throwing it out there that, there's a psychological connection between eating one and then eating more than one.
I have no idea where you're going with any of this, because if taste buds are a function of simply tasting things and not a necessity for nourishment or survival, that's basically irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant, because if it was irrelevant, then why would you need taste at all?
Well,
if nourishment was really just nourishment, then why would you? I mean, what's the point of tasting?
Well, it's kind of like
why was that bestowed upon human beings to be able to differentiate between one item and another item if it's not relevant?
That's a good question. Why is smell necessary? I mean, different people like different smells. That doesn't mean they need the smell. So, like, if you like one particular flower over another particular flower, I'm not sure you can make any connections to evolution or adaptation there. Just like if one particular human finds one particular type of food more tasty than another type of food, or is repulsed by a particular type of taste, what does that have to do with nourishment? Because in the case of,
So, I mean, what's the difference between having senses and not having senses then?
well, let me finish my
I mean,
point.
like,
Let me finish my point. We have a breatharian who might like the taste of chocolate but not horseradish. Then we have another breatharian who likes horseradish but not chocolate. Then we have average Joe Schmo eating the standard American diet who likes chocolate but doesn't like horseradish. Then we have the average American Joe number 2 who likes chocolate but not horseradish. So we have four people amongst two categories with different tastes. How does that prove anything about taste being related to nourishment?
because if that was the case, Bruce, then why is taste a part of human canon to begin with?
Well, why do some people find roses smelling nice but not lilies? I mean, these you can pull these questions out of anywhere. I'm going from the other.
I'm rounding out what you're asking. I mean, like, like if nourishment is not linked to taste, then what would be the point of taste in general?
Well, let me put it to you this way: if you're starving or dehydrated, and enough time goes by, you're gonna eat anything. You're not gonna care about taste. You'll eat your most despised food to survive because that's the survival mechanism. So the taste buds is irrelevant to your survival because anybody that's starved, non-breatharians that are starved for a long enough period of time, they will eat what their worst tasting foods. They will drink their most despised flavor drinks because when it gets to the point of survival, taste is irrelevant.
So is taste really something that's important, or is taste put there by the archon?
I don't know. Maxwell, do you want to chime in on that?
What was the question again?
Maxwell Army.
What was the question?
Is taste really important, or is eating food, like, nutrients, does taste really matter, or is taste a demonic thing that's put there from the archon, so we want to eat fat and we want to eat sugars, as opposed to eating stuff that's healthy for us that we might not like?
Is there a food conspiracy to make humans want to eat food and deny their breatharian energy and breatharian birthright to live for thousands of years in immortality?
Which my secretary will be contacting me regarding this future podcast as well.
So Maxwell, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I do like the idea of not eating for all of society, because we just save so much time. Because we spent so much time in the preparation, the eating, the cleaning. I mean, you're talking about 4 to 5 hours a day if you're doing it yourself, and that's about 3 hours a day just consuming and creating waste.
Not to mention, if you like cooked food, you actually have to, and you didn't have a gas stove at your disposal, you'd have to actually cut the wood to cook the food.
Think about how much better a place the world would be if humans didn't have to eat. You'd have all the animal suffering. Yeah,
that's what I was looking at. Like, I mean, I actually did. I kind of like. I don't think I did a full fast because I kind of cheated, but still, even like semi-fasting where I only have like a small amount of food at night, I save so much time throughout the day. Like, I don't have, like, I didn't go to a store and buy something to eat, and then, you also have to go to the bathroom like 2 or 3 times. I mean, if you're healthy and you're consuming food, you should be going to the bathroom 2 to 3 times a day if you're having 3 meals a day. But I mean, that's another time waster. You're sitting on a toilet for like an additional 10, 20 minutes a day or whatever. But I mean, it's just a waste of time. I think. Also, I mean, look at the dating. I mean, it was, of course, made up. This agricultural poison, whatever, however it was made. But you don't have to buy dinners and dates. We just get right to sex and get down to business. I mean, it just saves a lot of time for everybody overall.
First of
Why is
all,
that?
we need to exchange numbers. But like, second of all, like, yeah, like I'm not into the fasting bit. So I mean, like, I eat well. I mean, like, I'm a government worker, tried and true.
Must be rough while
Let me read this.
mopping those floors.
Let me read this article from The Sun. And this was originally published by Lauren Windle on June 15th, 2017, but it was updated on February 4th, 2018. So this is a famous Breatharian couple. We live on air. Breatharian couple claim they have barely eaten for 9 years and think they only need the universe's energy to live. The couple says they survive on a piece of fruit or vegetable broth just 3 times per week. Okay, so once again, right off the bat, their claim is not quite super outlandish that they don't drink or eat anything ever. So they do admit that they consume some kind of nutrients. So a Breatharian mom and dad of 2 claim to have, a Breatharian mom and dad of 2, this is a British article, claim to have barely eaten for 9 years, alleging they live off the universe's energy. Husband and wife Akahi Ricardo and Camilla Costello claim food and water, which is essential for human existence, is not necessary for them and that people can be sustained solely by the energy of the universe. Camila and Akahi, who have a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter together, claim that all they have eaten since 2008 is a piece of fruit or vegetable broth just 3 times a week. NHS guidelines state a man needs about 2,500 calories a day and a woman 2,000. An apple has just 52 calories. And Camilla claims she even practiced being a breatharian during pregnancy, insisting she didn't eat anything during the entire 9 months she carried her first child. Official NHS guidelines state a balanced diet with a good mix of fruit, veg, protein, carbs, and dairy is essential for pregnant women who should eat 200 more calories per day in their last trimester. The married couple of 9 years claim their food-free lifestyle has improved their health and emotional well-being. Many people are skeptical about their claims, suggesting that they simply blend food and drink it for energy rather than eating it in the conventional way. Which, by the way, a liquid diet is actually quite an excellent diet for detox. And it actually supposedly cures quite a few diseases to just go 30 to 90 days on a liquid diet.
Well, I could understand that. I mean, like, you're combining nutrients and it's a direct injection into your body. So, I mean, I'm not going to dispute.
Much less taxing on the digestive system as well. Camilla, 34, who lives between California and Ecuador with her husband, bizarrely claimed humans can easily be without food as long as they are connected to the energy that exists in all things and through breathing. For 3 years, Akahi and I didn't eat anything at all. And now we only eat occasionally, like if we're in a social situation or I simply want to taste a fruit. With my first child, I practiced a breatharian pregnancy. Hunger was a foreign sensation to me, so I fully lived on light and ate nothing. My blood tests during all 3 trimesters were impeccable, and I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Since breatharianism, I feel healthier and happier than I've ever before. When I was younger, my weight fluctuated, but now after having 2 children, my body bounced back to its natural shape immediately. I never suffer from PMS symptoms anymore, and I feel more emotionally stable. Husband Akahi, 36, believes that breatharianism is the ideal way to slash people's food shopping bills. Akahi, who teaches courses about breatharianism with his wife Camilla, explained, there is a freedom that comes with not being attached or dependent on food. Obviously, our living costs are a lot less than most families, and that has allowed us to spend our money on things that really matter, like traveling and exploring together. It's given us a clear sense of what we want in life. Anyone can live a breatharian lifestyle and feel the benefits. It's not about never eating food again. It's about understanding cosmic nourishment, not just physical nourishment, and living without limits. An interesting point there is if you're not getting your nutrition one way, you get it another way. I mean, that's something I've thought about as well. For example, people who are obese or overweight, they're always hungry. Not in all cases, but in many cases, probably the majority of cases, they're hungry because they're not eating healthy food with nutrients. So if someone breathes in a manner which allows them to receive more energy than someone who breathes in a different manner, or someone who's out in the sunlight all day, or there's all these other variables we don't even know about. If you're getting your nutrition another way, you might not need as much food. So I think that's the main point to understand about breatharianism. It's kind of about breaking the food addiction or the way you think about food. I'm not sure I would go as far to make the absolute distinction, especially for myself, that I wouldn't need any kind of food or liquid for nourishment. But thinking about it as you need a certain amount for nourishment and that's it. Not that you need 3 meals or 5 meals a day with the food pyramid and all of these things.
But I mean, Bruce. I mean, like, let's look at this. I mean, like, like I'm talking about lobster tail and surf and turf. But I mean, like, even going back to like in the military, like there were plenty of days I went 2 to 3 to 4 days without eating any kind of proper diet, and it never even occurred to me at that point in time to eat. It wasn't a matter of the fact that we were in a conflict. It wasn't a matter that we were in a situation. I'm one of those people where I just kind of put it aside, and you put it aside, and you put it aside. Your body does need some sort of nourishment at some particular point in time. I think breatharianism is kind of the anti-food addiction. It's the polar opposite. I mean, we spoke about polar opposites in our previous video, but if you're not addicted to food or addicted to the taste of food, which again, we went on about taste buds earlier. There are people that are addicted to drugs where they crave a particular type of drug. I don't necessarily crave a particular type of food. I mean, I'm spoiled as fuck, and I'm not going to, make any other bones about it. But, I mean, like, I like to eat what I like to eat. But that said, if it was all taken away, I don't know if it would actually have a dip in my health. If you put someone that is addicted to food and addicted to a particular lifestyle next to me, they might struggle more than me, even though I eat very rich French-based cuisine that's based on heavy dairy products, which may or may not, certain people that watch this, they might be, they might have a more vegan lifestyle. I'm not one of those people. But that said, I could live without it. I don't know if I would even bitch and complain about it. I would just kind of tell my mind, hey, like, we can't have that right now. So, I think what we're talking about is more an inner control of our own self-consciousness as opposed to dietary.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to think about it. But let me finish this article. So the couple met in 2005 and got married 3 years later in 2008. Later the same year, they both discovered breatharianism through a friend. The pair had to slowly work their way from vegetarianism to a vegan diet and then to just eating fruit before starting the 21-day breatharian process. And once again, to the people that died doing this, that's like the obese guy on the couch trying to just runs out his door to do a marathon. Like, that's just not smart, but I guess this is almost like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're not going to say exercise is bad for you because obese people will die if they immediately try to run a marathon. So once again, doesn't mean breatharianism is good just based on that, but it could be good. So to write it off because a couple people died, the propaganda attack on it is just I think it's pretty blatant. So they claim this saw them only have air, water, and diluted juice. Once again, another important fact, they weren't going 100% dry fast, so they did have juice. Akahi said the 21-day breatharian process was a powerful one and a stepping stone into realizing the infinite potential that lies within. It led us to explore the breath and its presence within our lives, showing us that we could easily be without food as long as we had air. I used to eat a lot, but I haven't felt hungry since that process in 2008. For the next 3 years, the couple claimed they didn't eat solid food at all. Another point, they're not claiming to have eaten no food at all, they said no solid food. These days, they have relaxed the rules slightly, occasionally eating so that they can share the experience with their 2 children. Camilla explained, I was completely open to changing my food-free lifestyle when I first became pregnant because my child came first. I didn't feel the need or desire to eat solid food during the entire 9 months, so I only ate 5 times, all of which were in social situations. And I knew my son would be nourished enough by my love, and this would allow him to grow healthily in my womb. Now, Akahi and I eat very sporadically, perhaps 3 or 4 times per week at the most. I might have a few vegetables, a juice, or a bite of an apple with my children. Sometimes we have a glass of water, too. Whenever I eat now, it's not because I'm hungry, I just don't remember that sensation. The couple's children aren't forced to practice breatharianism, although the couple insists that their kids understand the practice. Akahi said, our children are aware of breatharianism and the energy that exists in the universe and in themselves, but we would never try to change them, and we let them eat whatever they want, whether that be juices, vegetables, pizza, or ice cream. Another interesting thing that I always try to look at is how is everything going to look in the future? If the ages of man are simply cycles that repeat itself, if spiritual enlightenment also entails not eating food, and if that becomes the standard in another 100, 500,000 years, whatever it is, you look back and you look at all of the kind of the masses who can't even entertain possibilities, and it could become the status quo like possibly it might have once been many ages ago. So again, to me, these claims aren't that outlandish because if they're getting their energy somehow and they don't need that much extra, which they can get from juices or apples, whatnot, and they fully admit to even eating out socially. So even if they're having a steak every now and then, do you really need a steak every single day? If you have it once or twice a month, is that not enough to be healthy? I think it might be.
I can't argue with that. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, like, like that said, like, I have steak weekly, at least, like, but, like, I can understand, in terms of health, it's probably healthier to not do that every week. So, I mean, I'm not arguing with you. And keep in mind that, like, the way that they express they've eaten 5 times, per whatever, like, the juices or the liquid diet that they might drink might be heavily concentrated with protein. They're not explaining that in that particular. I mean, look at Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce Lee used to electrocute himself and then drink raw eggs. And you don't fuck with Bruce Lee.
That is a true point. I think everybody can agree with that.
I mean, you don't fuck with Bruce Lee, but I mean, like, he used to electrocute himself regularly, and then he would drink 6 or 8 raw eggs, so I mean, diet. I think what we're really coming upon, Bruce, is that diet is a very subjective thing. There are those that have picked a diet that's quintessential for their genome, and then there are those that haven't. I mean, there are many, 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 many.
Well, let me adjust my tinfoil hat here. Does having a diet make you die? And the people with no diet,
having a restricted diet, unless it works for you.
Well, why is the word diet have die in it? Does that mean you're not going to be immortal if you have a diet as opposed to having no diet?
I think that the people that practice binge diet, slim fast, those type of things where they're trying to lose weight, it's not a lifestyle. What you're talking about here is not anything that has to do with, becoming thin or fat or husky. I mean, there are plenty of monks out there that are actually a little husky. I mean, and they live on rice. I don't really think that it has anything to do with that. I think what you're really talking about is you're choosing a particular plane of, it's more than just the diet itself. You're reaching a certain understanding within your own body where my body requires this, in order to function optimally. And I'm choosing to utilize that to move forward. So, I mean, like, if there are people out there that they can eat an apple and they can occasionally drink water and that's optimal for them, then who am I to question that? I mean, who am I to question? I mean, if you were cutting, if you were poked by a sword, who am I to question your level of pain? My pain is not necessarily the level of your pain.
Maxwell, any thoughts?
About what?
Maxwell Army. We're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
We're doing a podcast here, Maxwell, right?
Yeah, I got lost a little bit. What's the latest thing?
Well, I was just mentioning how the word diet has the word die in it. So if you have no diet at all, do you not die?
Yeah, I don't know if that's. I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
All right, let's look at another example. This was an article published in the New York Daily News on June 7th, 2013 by Tracy Miller. Seattle woman stops eating and goes breatharian for 5 weeks in an attempt to survive on water and light. Plants survive on light and water alone, so why can't humans? A Seattle woman is putting that question to the test in an experiment some find inspiring. Others see it as misguided and dangerous. British-born Navina Shine, 65, stopped eating on May 3rd in order to discover whether she could subsist on water, sunlight, and tea, and is documenting her efforts on Facebook and YouTube. The extreme fast, which she says intends to try for at least 40 days and perhaps 4 to 6 months, is apparently tied to Shine's New Age beliefs about the universe. Obscure yogis called Breatharians have also attempted the practice, she told Seattle's Fox affiliate KCPO. Plants live on light. When we eat plants, she wrote on Facebook May 3rd, are we simply not accessing our inherent ability to live on light? After hearing of
Yeah,
the
and she's a fucking Brit, so she still lives on fucking tea.
After hearing of the possibility that this might be true, I received a calling from within, from the universe, to find out if it is so. Shine also wonders if food is an addiction. Can you imagine if we did not have to eat just how free our lives would be? She writes in an introductory blog post on livingonlight.co. A vast amount of time, effort, and resources go into merely putting food on the table. If humans did not have to eat, we could turn our planet back into a place of beauty. This experiment isn't a diet, Shine notes, adding that anyone who attempts it for weight loss would gain the weight back once they start eating again. 5 weeks into her self-devised program, Shine is down to 130 pounds from about 160. She reports having lost the weight from her belly and that her skin feels better. She also makes note on Facebook of unpleasant sounding side effects such as weakness, throwing up bile, dizziness, and frozen hands. I normally do 20 minutes on the treadmill twice a day, she wrote on May 28th. After that, I often need to lie down for a while to recover. Today, I went to sleep right after and seem to have spent half the day sleeping. Really pleasant on a rainy day in Seattle. Since local media picked up on her story, Shine has drawn both supporters and detractors on Facebook, but remains undaunted. I will stop if not thriving, she wrote. So there's a lot of people on YouTube actually going through breatharian type diets where for X period of time they're documenting it, and there's some quite interesting results. Obviously, the naysayers will say they're cheating, but some of the shorter ones that just a couple weeks, I mean, I don't know. That doesn't seem. It seems completely possible. We're going to go into the most well documented case of a breatharian in a moment, but first, I just wanted to address all these people. One of the things I notice is that their pupils get really, really dilated. So I'm not sure if they're on some kind of acid trips at the same time as doing the breatharian diet. I mean, Jr., you'd know more about that than I do.
Wait, what? Say that again?
Are you having a Maxwell moment?
I'm having a Maxwell moment.
Well, I was just
A
saying,
Maxwell Army moment.
if they're on some kind of drugs while they're also doing a breatharian cleanse or whatnot, could that explain certain things?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are heroin addicts out there that live on cheese and crackers for weeks at a time.
Yeah, they seem to be really good at not needing nourishment as being able to survive without meal plans. Maxwell, any thoughts?
About the 2-week YouTuber people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd like to see them and see what their eyes look like. I don't know.
All right, let's go into some of the origin of this Breatharianism. So, even in the Yoga Sutras book, there are actually siddhis who have extraordinary abilities due to their practice of Buddhism, breathing, and Breatharianism. And some of them claim clairvoyance, psychokinesis, levitation, all of these things. Is breatharianism a natural human condition? Are we stifling our potential by taxing the human body with digesting food and liquids? Are we?
I think,
Do
you know,
we all
I
have
mean,
super?
Bruce,
Do we all have superhuman abilities that we're kind of?
I think human beings are very resilient creatures. I think what you're speaking about is not necessarily about, are we stifling with food? Are we stifling with excess? I mean, look at the amount of processed foods available to the average American today, as opposed to even like 20, 30, 40 years ago. I think that, like, you know, when it comes to what you're asking, I don't really think it's a matter of actual nutrients, because, I mean, when you look at the amount of foods that are available in today's market, even though they have a label and it's all FDA approved and all this other bullshit, how many foods does the average American eat that are nutrient rich? Like, I mean, we're not talking about, you know, eating a little, you know, sliver of salmon. We're talking about on a regular basis what's considered actual shit that's being put into our bodies that's good, as opposed to, I mean, you know, let me ask you a question. Is there a difference between eating one meal a week that's nutrient rich as opposed to eating 7 meals in a week that are not nutrient rich?
That's a pretty good point. And those who point to the evolution of the human, thousands of years ago, if humans were these nomads that hunted woolly mammoths, they went for weeks, if not months, between meals, because if their hunt did not go successfully, they were going long periods of time without eating. So that's a good point. Let me move on to a Nikola Tesla quote. In 1901, he said this: "My idea is that the development of life must lead to forms of existence that will be possible without nourishment, and which will not be shackled by consequent limitations. Why should a living being not be able to obtain all the energy it needs for the performance of its life functions from the environment instead of through the consumption of food and transforming by a complicated process the energy of chemical combinations into life sustaining energy?" Who's
But I
going to
mean,
argue? Who's
again,
going to
Bruce,
argue with Nikola Tesla?
again, like, you know, Tesla was saying that in his own time. I mean, like, you know, food, I mean, honestly, Bruce, food has become a petri dish. I mean, let me ask you a question. Did you eat a Jimmy Dean's breakfast sandwich this morning? Did you go to McDonald's? Like, you know, you're accusing me to go to McDonald's. Like, what's the difference between a real diet and filler? I mean, like, you know, I mean, this podcast has really brought about a particular point, and that is, are Americans? I mean, you know, like, we're not even talking about people starving in the world here who don't even have access to nutrient-rich food. We eat all day long as Americans, but is what we're eating nutrient-rich? I mean, are you eating, you know, soluble fatty acids? Are you eating, I mean, like the pyramid, the food pyramid that we have on there? I mean, what a joke. I mean, do you go to fucking Walmart or wherever and, like, you know, look at the pyramid and say, hey, you know, like, I only have 2,000 grams of this and none of that? I mean, like, nobody does that. I mean, that's like clicking the EULA at the end of installing something on your computer. I mean, you know, like, it's not, nobody pays attention to it. So, I mean, you know, like, where is the real diet going? You know, I mean, like, we're having this discussion with predominantly, I think, personally, Americans. I mean, you know, there might be some European followers there, but you know, and
Yeah, we have quite a few
they
listeners.
claim to have a better diet than we do. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, like America's only 300 years old, so like, what's their excuse?
We have listeners in the UK. We have a lot of listeners in the
Yeah,
UK, all over
and
Europe,
like
and
America,
and also Australia and
and
New
the
Zealand.
United States is only 300 years old. So I mean, like, where did that diet come from? It came from them, and they're experts. Because
Let's get a little bit
they've
more.
existed for 5,000 years. So I mean, we should trust that.
Let's get a little bit more on track, JR. So, the claim of eating without food is actually quite old, and it's pretty popular in India. Dean Radin, the chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, has a book called Supernormal Science, Yoga, and the Evidence of Extraordinary Psychic Abilities. Here is an excerpt from that book. The implication is that the human body can transmute ambient energy into nutrients. And through the practice of cultivating this ability, one can live comfortably for as long as one wishes without food and possibly without drinking water. This is described as a siddhi in the Yoga Sutras as Pada 113.30, liberation from hunger and thirst. This flies in the face of a substantial body of medical knowledge, which has established that the human body can last about 5 days without water and a few weeks at most without food. Beyond that, you're dead. As a result, despite a host of historical examples of people lasting for years without eating and sometimes without drinking, most nutritionists and biochemists regard such claims to be ridiculously impossible, and the people who make the claims, currently dozens to hundreds worldwide, to be seriously delusional. Some of these claimants may well be delusional, but all of them? Question mark. So once again, I mean, in a couple hundred years, our time period now could be looked at as the scientific dark ages. Based on how fast technology is evolving, our understanding of everything could be completely wrong. So I know people don't, cognitive dissonance prevents people from even entertaining that possibility. But all of our medical literature could be based on assumptions that aren't true or very small pieces of the puzzle. It could all be true, but it could be 1% of all of the available knowledge of how the human body works. So if there's all these other systems and energy transmutations into nutrients and all of these things, is that how it works? Any thoughts on that, Maxwell?
On science.
Yes.
Um. Uh. Yeah, I don't know.
Good thing you're on the podcast. All right, we're going to look at the most famous case now.
Yo, did you get my 6-inch from Wawa?
Nope.
Fuck.
Okay, the most famous case is probably that of Prahlad Jani. So he is a local of Ahmedabad, India. He claims at age 11, the Hindu goddess Amba appeared before him and told him he would no longer have to eat food. He supposedly lived in a cave since the 70s and hasn't eaten anything for most of his lifetime, which as of the year 2012 was 81 years. So here's where it gets interesting. Well, right off the bat, Maxwell, do you believe this man's claims?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
JR?
I'm just pissed at Maxwell eating my fucking 6-inch from Wawa. Like, what the fuck?
You believe this guy or no?
I mean, what? How long did he live without food?
As of 2012, he was 81 years old, and he claimed to not have eaten anything for the majority of his lifespan. So it appears he did not say that he ate absolutely nothing. So I'm guessing as of age 11, he stopped eating because
it's possible. I mean, Bruce, it's possible. I mean, yeah, the fact that they eat but they don't, but they do but they don't, that's convoluted to me.
Well, this guy seems to be more black and white. He claims that he does not eat or drink anything.
Does he eat seafood? He lives in a cave.
All right, so here's where it gets.
Bugs that crawl up into the cave. I mean, this is really gray area stuff, Bruce.
Okay,
I mean,
so here's where it gets interesting. In 2003 and in 2010, He was tested at Sterling Hospital by Dr. Sudhir Shah and a team of doctors. Dr. Shah is a consultant neurologist who has been practicing for 20 years, and he's also a professor and head of the Department of Neurology at the KM School of PG Medicine and Research. The first test took place in 2003, where he was monitored 24/7 by hospital staff and video cameras. They claimed he did not eat or drink anything at any time. And this test was over a period of 10 days. So 10 days without food or water with no changes. He was
But again, Bruce, I mean, like, what's the difference between, like, you not eating anything and, like, Jonestown eating gravy and rice every day? Like, what's the difference?
I think the difference is kind of obvious. But
What,
he was
because something entered your system?
Yes. He was tested again at Sterling Hospital in 2010 from April 22nd to May 6th, observed by 35 researchers from the Indian Defense Institute of Physiology and Allied Sciences, among other organizations. Jani did not eat or drink for 2 weeks and showed no ill effects. Maxwell, what do you think about that?
That's interesting. No ill effects. That's So he said 2 weeks, right? 10 days
Yeah.
or 10
Well,
days?
let me read an article. This is from the National Post. Indian man survives without food and water, baffles doctors. An Indian man has mystified a team of military doctors after he abstained from food and water for 2 weeks. Prahlad Jani, an 82-year-old yogi who claimed he hadn't eaten or drunk anything for 70 years, was observed by 30 medics in a hospital in the Indian state of Gujarat. He spent 2 weeks under constant surveillance in an area equipped with cameras and closed-circuit television. During the 15-day period, which ended Thursday, Jani didn't eat, drink, or go to the toilet. We still do not know how he survives, neurologist Sudhir Shah told reporters after the end of the experiment. It is still a mystery what kind of phenomenon this is. If Jenny does not derive energy from food and water, he must be doing that from energy sources around him, sunlight being one, said Shah. As medical practitioners, we cannot shut our eyes to possibilities to a source of energy other than calories. It's quite interesting outlook that scientists in India have versus, for example, American scientists or doctors. Anyway, the study was done by India's Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, the State Defense and Military Research Institute. JR, do you have any experience with this institute? Or
Well, the fact that, like, it's the military research of India, that's interesting. I mean, like, because in other words, hey, we can cut like $1 billion in cost per year for our soldiers if they learn how to, like, eat and breathe like this guy.
Well,
So, yeah.
Thank you for avoiding the question, but
Well, I mean, Bruce, like, seriously, like, most people eat. If this guy doesn't, then, I mean, if I was in charge of the project, I mean, and he doesn't eat, and he's, like, perfectly alert, and he's perfectly well, and my job was to cut the budget of the government, why wouldn't I be intrigued by this particular incident? I mean,
that wasn't my question for you. But anyhow, they hope to unlock the key to Janice's mysterious abilities so that others can benefit, such as soldiers in the field, astronauts in space, and victims trapped in natural disasters. Doctors performed several tests on Jani's heart, lungs, and memory capacity and took scans of his organs, brain, and blood vessels. Lab work will also be completed on his hormones, enzymes, energy metabolism, and genes. The findings will be revealed in greater detail over the next several months. Jani claimed that he has not had anything to eat or drink since 1940, and he called himself a Breatharian, sustaining himself on air and meditation.
First of all, where are the results? And second of all, like, yes, I understand this all occurred, but again, this harkens back to the Atkinson Scott debate where some people run to the South Pole and then other people walk to prove a point. Clearly he didn't have the desire to eat or the predisposition the need to eat, does that, I mean, the human body is extraordinarily resilient. Does that mean that he can't sustain 2 weeks? Just because other people can't doesn't mean that the human body in its own physical form, without the scope of the psychological instrument, can't do that.
According to AFP, Jenny said he was given his special powers after being blessed by a goddess when he was young. After the observation and tests were completed, he returned to his village in northern Gujarat, where he will continue his routine of yoga and meditation. Jenny was placed under observation once before in 2003, but lost weight over the week he was held. So it looks like his first test, he did lose weight, and in this second longer test, he didn't. Whatever that means, I don't know. And apparently the findings were released and they were normal. This was also reported on livescience.com. So what do we think, Maxwell?
It's interesting how he survived that long.
Here's a statement from a scientific group, including the Defense Institute of Physiology and Allied Sciences, given to ABC News back in 2012. We realized that if this whole phenomena really exists in a human being, even for 15 days, it would have immense application in unraveling secrets of medical science and its application for human welfare. Instead of ignoring this case, we selected to investigate further in a rational and scientific way. We again make it clear that the purpose of this study was not to prove or disprove a person, but to explore a possibility in science and study a new phenomenon. So apparently, you know what's weird? A lot of these monks or yogis, a lot of these people just have nothing to prove, and it's kind of against their philosophy to go on TV and prove stuff. So that's another thing that the mainstream kind of doesn't understand. And there's a lot of fakers out there, phonies, as JR would call them, charlatans, as I refer them.
Phony.
I refer to them as charlatans. They're always going to be out there. But that doesn't mean the real thing isn't also out there. These black and white fallacies that people fall into to kind of indulge their dissonance or to justify it are pretty silly, because maybe this happened, maybe it didn't happen. But
again, Bruce, doesn't this appear to you, I mean, from a scientific perspective, to be a genetic predisposition?
I'm not sure. That depends on your viewpoint. If humans are just simply way more capable of what we've been led, if we go once again into the deep, dark rabbit holes, if there is an Illuminati controlling humanity and The Matrix was a documentary, then it would behoove them for humans to think they are much less than what they are and never achieve their true potential and remain the cattle to do their bidding, would it not, Maxwell?
Yeah, would it? Yep.
Maxwell Army. JR, any thoughts on that aspect?
I expect a fucking, signed t-shirt, Maxwell Army, with your fucking signature on the front. Like that's what I have to say about that.
All right, let's look at one more case, the case of Michael Werner. So this is actually a doctor of chemistry, and he manages a pharmaceutical research institute in Switzerland. So at one point, he claimed not to have eaten any solid food since 2001. He was studied in a 10-day observational test in October 2004 by the intensive care unit at a hospital in Switzerland. And the results of his tests were never published. Dean Radin offered an explanation why they would never be published and why they had so little attention. He said this: perhaps the most curious aspect of Breatharian tests is the in-your-face nature of the claimed phenomenon, and yet an almost complete lack of interest from the scientific community. If it is possible to live well without eating food, this ought to be easy to demonstrate. And if it held up, the scientific and social consequences would be astounding. So let's go farther into conspiracy land. If this is true, and if this was proven, the food industry would suffer so severely. Do you see some of these corporate moguls, these ruthless, sometimes called evil people, exploiting others? The food industry is almost as big as the drug industry, if not bigger. I mean, I actually don't have the numbers in front of me. I know the pharmaceutical industry is.
Well, I think the food industry would be bigger than the pharmaceutical industry.
Well, let me actually double check that. What do you think about that, Maxwell?
Could be true or not true. I don't know.
I mean, food is cheaper than high-end drugs, so...
But everyone needs food. Not everyone needs drugs.
Well, that depends on which country
Infants,
you live in.
it,
How medicated is the average American?
infants to elders need food. Hypothetic infants to elders, there's a gap. Infants need medication. Maybe some small children need medication. But then you reach a plateau where you're 18 to, say, 30 and you're quote unquote invincible. You may or may not require medication. So I would think that food industry would be larger. For example, Cargill, which is the #1 privately owned corporation in the United States, which makes like 60 to 70 bill a year. That's more than Pfizer, a publicly owned company.
Yeah, so in this conspiracy, the food industry moguls, would they ever, like, how far do you think it would go to prevent breatharianism or the possibility of breatharianism being true? There would be a lot of vested interest to prevent this from going public, wouldn't there?
Possibly.
Possibly. That's all you got? That's all you got? Let me put it to you this way. If vaccines don't work and are a hoax science, what is the effect on the pharmaceutical industry? I mean, it's so monumental. The effect on the food industry would be even more insane. Is that obvious or no?
That's true.
Okay, so let's wrap this up with some basics of scientific fasting. Mark Matson, the chief of the Laboratory of Neuroscience at the National Institute of Aging and a professor of neuroscience at Johns Hopkins University, actually mentioned that fasting generates new stem cells, repairs DNA, fights cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and many other diseases. So the benefits of fasting are so tremendous. Are the benefits of breatharianism even more than fasting? Because if you're just fasting for a short period of time and you're getting this much benefit, is it possible that breatharianism can lead to even more benefits? No final thoughts there, JR?
It might be benefits. I have no idea. Like, I mean, like we've discussed the whole idea of nutrition, but like, in the absence of nutrition, what is and what isn't? I mean, how does the absence of nutrition make it better?
Well, so the prevailing theory on that is that the average person's diet is so toxic that simply ceasing the poisons going into the human system results in vast healing simply by not poisoning yourself. So I think there's it definitely needs to be looked at as nutrition versus ceasing poison. If most foods are just processed or poisonous, removing them from your diet completely and starving yourself would have benefits. That's why fasting is so successful. Where I find where it gets strange for me is when you don't drink water, because your body is mostly water. Water is the essence of life, much like the sun and water, the essence of life. Without water, I'm not sure how cells would function unless they were designed to function without water and then adapted to functioning with water. But taking water out of the equation for a brief moment, if humans aren't designed to eat food, or at least the processed food that we have, or possibly cooked food, there's a lot of theories out there on raw food as well and the connection to enzymes, that removing the poison would just have massive benefits. For example, let's say you live in some kind of polluted factory, and then you go from living right next to a polluted factory, you get moved into some kind of an ozone germ free clean room at a hospital where there's no germs at all, and you start breathing pure oxygen instead of regular oxygen. You'd have a massive increase in health just by being removed from a toxic situation.
Yeah, but you've never actually stated that these people didn't drink water, and based on everything that we've discussed, you never gave the level of exertion based on the fact that you can drink water and then have that in your system for X period of time.
Yeah, that's a good point. But some of these guys did not drink water either. Like
but again, it's all based on the level of exertion. It's also based on the level of how often you excrete toxins in your body. Like none of that was ever described.
Well, Jenny did not go to the bathroom or drink water or eat. So, and he had no physiological changes. So, in his case, it was pretty detailed and outlined. But going back to what you were saying with the fasting, how it could produce such health benefits, the hardcore breatharians might say that the human natural state is not to consume solid matter. Like, we could even go into extreme examples of drug addicts. Like, they'll go through withdrawal. They might even die from withdrawal, right? If you're a hardcore drug addict and you're addicted to something bad and your natural state isn't to be addicted to it, you might die if you go cold turkey. That doesn't mean that the drugs are good for you just because you're used to them and you might die without them, correct? What if food is simply an addiction that we don't need and we weren't designed for? And doing these little fasts has such extreme benefits because it's closer to our natural state. Once again, I'm not saying I believe this in any way. I'm just throwing theories out there to kind of explore them. What do you think, Maxwell?
Um, uh, I don't know.
You've done multiple fasts. What do you mean you don't know?
Wait, what was the specific question?
Do you ever pay attention?
I'm trying, but
The specific question was, is the reason for the benefits of fasting because the natural human state is to not consume food? So similarly to how a drug addict would wean himself off drugs and be better off, whereas going completely cold turkey for an extended period of time would kill the drug addict. That doesn't mean that the drugs are good for the addict or that the drugs are necessary for survival by design. They just got used to the drugs. So that what if the relationship humans have with food is similar to a drug addict with drugs?
I'm not sure about that. I think biologically, I think we're made to eat some food. But what I realized when I fasted, when I did a fast, we consume just a little bit too much. I think we can all be healthy eating one meal a day.
Okay,
Even
that
one
wasn't
meal.
that wasn't my question. We already went over that. I'm saying you believe that humans are designed to eat by nutrition. What is the basis for that belief? I'm just throwing it out there that what if?
I don't know. I think having a stomach versus not having a stomach. I think having a stomach that digests food would be
If the
a
theory
indicator of design that.
if the theory of evolution is true, maybe, or adaptation, the stomach wasn't designed for that, but became that because of what happened. Or what if the stomach is only to be used as kind of a last resort if there's no sunlight, then you need to get your nutrition from other sources. So you would have a stomach, but it's not really meant to be used every day, or let's say even every month. Let's say it's some kind of
I mean, but that's what I kind of said about my experience with fast. I mean, I think we could go with like once a week of food.
But
Although,
why not once a year? How does the design of the stomach prove the frequency?
yeah, I don't know, but the once a year, I've only heard of a person that did it for 385 days. That was the longest fast I've heard of. I don't know about the other ones, but I don't know. I think
Wait, water fast?
yeah, water fast. Yeah, just water for like 385 days.
Then
Yeah.
why does the stomach rumble?
That's the longest I've heard.
Well, I don't know. Why do your joints crack sometimes? I mean, I don't know.
Well, you don't know, but I'm asking. Like, it's like, if it's only meant to be used once a year, then, like, why does it let you know it's there?
Well, so what's your position on so-called vestigial organs? Like, you have them, but they don't do anything?
My tailbone doesn't let me know it's there every hour of the day.
Well, that's because you're not used to doing something that would make it let you know that it's there.
I mean, how do you know?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're used to eating, obviously you'd be used to eating.
I mean, like, forget me, but, like, like, even to people that, like, slept up and down in crawl spaces, and, like, like, maybe you hit your vestigial, I mean, like, you hit your funny bone, it lets you know it's there. You hit your tailbone, does it let you know it's there?
If you're used to eating, then you're going to be used to eating. I mean, it's as simple as that. And if you're not
Well,
used,
being used to and it letting you know that it needs something are two different things.
Well, how do you know that
I
it's
mean-
letting you know that you need something and not just?
Well, because I mean, there's a psychological response.
Okay, so if somebody, yeah, correct. So if somebody's addicted to drugs, they get their response that they need the drugs. So, yes.
Like again, like okay, so what you're saying is that food is a okay psychological addiction that we're all on the same page of because we're all human beings.
Not necessarily. I'm saying. I mean, that's kind of saying, are all drug addicts on the same page that they need the specific drugs?
Well,
So, like,
being a drug addict and eating food, there's a big gap there. I mean, because even though there's a large percentage of drug addicts within culture, being a drug addict is not something you're taught from birth. You're given
but
liquid food and solid food.
let's say there was a society that taught drug addiction from birth. How would that change? The principle would remain the same. So they would all grow
I
up.
mean, but it's not a society. It's almost the whole world.
So if the whole but let's say the whole world taught their children to become addicted to drugs right off the bat, how would that change what
So
you're talking about?
by going from milk to semi-solid food to solid food, you're saying that the entire world is addicted to something as opposed to not being. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand.
I simply postulated that what if humans weren't designed to use physical food as their primary energy source?
Then why is the digestive system a key aspect of human beings?
Well, that's why I said primary. So there could be two explanations. One, maybe if there's some kind of cataclysmic event or you live in a cave for a year or two or three, you can't get energy from the sun or from other sources, so you're kind of forced to get it from physical matter, and that's why the stomach and digestive system are there. Or the stomach and digestive system were something else that kind of adapted into the system it is now because of the addiction to physical nourishment that wasn't necessarily designed but happened. So that's why it is the way now. I mean, both those scenarios could explain our current situation. I'm just postulating. This is Mindshock. I'm not pushing any theory as true. Maxwell, what do you think?
I don't know. My brain's shot.
Isn't that its natural state?
Right now, yeah.
We hope you enjoyed another edition of the Mindshock podcast, and your mind has been thoroughly shocked by Breatharianism. If you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. And check us out on social media, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
At Maxwell Powers.
See you guys next time.